So, this is Himitsu, and I've seen various, topics on Twitter, and I kind of wanted to make a collab of them, or a collage, I should say. One of the main topics have been mental health, and some other topics include VTuber expression, and just general male female relations, right? So I kind of wanted to tackle all of the above and in the order of importance. So let's talk about men mental health and a couple of misconceptions about men mental health. So one of the things that I think about men mental health that's important to understand is there is deliberate intention in the safe spaces, quote unquote safe spaces that men have created. And I think one of the main things that's not really understood is why men created those spaces. And there is two components to this. There is the intentional component to it, and there's also the design component to it. So let's talk about the design component to it first and foremost. If you are a guy, first and foremost, from a man's perspective, going as far back as the caveman days, you had to fight for food. You had to be the hunter gatherer. There were fish and lions and tigers and dinosaurs, if humans were around back then, and so on and so forth. We were cavemen and women, the fire, the brimstone, in a real primitive moment of life. And in those primitive times, we didn't have technology. There were no iPhones, iPads. There was no convenience. So, in our biological wiring and brain, for men, you had to fight to survive. And really, this need to fight and survive, if you really look at it chronologically, it was a necessity all the way up to the mid 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. The world that we live in today, convenience as we know it and human relations as we know it has only really been around since the 1980s. Like, my generation is honestly the first generation of adults into this new paradigm. By and large, the human genome history is on this fight and flight response, generally speaking. So, from a man's perspective, he has to have the physical and mental strength to be able to persevere and to be able to push through. He needs this for a variety of reasons. Number one, he needs to fend for himself because damn sure no one else is going to fend for him. And number two, if he has a girlfriend, a fiance, a significant other, oh, and we haven't even mentioned the kids, right? You have all of that. You have to take care of them too. So, in that hunter gatherer mode, a male's first and foremost intention is to be self preservative. So, put yourself in a man's shoes and ask, how can I self preserve my family, my tribe, my possessions in a world where other men are also going to be after the same material resources, the same finite resources? Well, the answer to that is we had to create our own little village, our own little home. And so there it is, where the hut was first invented, where you go through your various caves and they light up the torches. These things from a very early on, they came from a moment of self preservation. And I think what's really important for a woman to understand is that this self preservation is the intent and design of male existence. If you understand nothing else about a man, if you understand nothing else about the guy that you find dreamy and is a hunk, understand that. that in his mind of minds, he has to preserve what is tied to his name, and he has to preserve what is close and valuable to him, because if he doesn't, someone else will take it from him. You can disagree with that. You can think that that's a zero sum way of looking at it, but that's the reality of a man's mental state. He must preserve and protect, or he has nothing. Zero, nada. So that's the design behind it. Here's the intent. Although, guys, the brotherhood is never going to be like the sisterhood, it's never going to be that close. Because in order for men to decompress and to handle our situations, we need a separation. We need time to ourselves. We need to decompose so that we can handle it. I mean, you've heard so many horror stories. You know what happens if a man is unable to decompose and unable to handle his situation with the amount of emotional maturity necessary to filter through all those things. And most men instinctively and consciously are aware of that. And so that is why men have their man spaces, their man caves. That is why your man goes through his Dungeons and Dragons. Let's think of it this way. Would you rather be in a tense situation with the man that you love, or would you rather him spend a half an hour on Dungeons and Dragons? What do you think is the better alternative for him, and what is the better alternative for you? For me, I would rather have the guy spend half an hour, whatever it is, on Dungeons and Dragons. That just makes more sense, right? You know, if I were dating a lady and that lady happens to be a drunk, that's not necessarily a red flag to me, but what it is going to be is if she's in one of those moods where she's an angry drunk, respectfully, I'm going to say, you have that time to drink, to get it out, because the last thing I want is your beer bottle on my head. So it's a form of self-preservation, but it's also a form of decompressing, because I know after she's done angry binge drinking, it is then that I can talk to her now that she's calmed down. Like, separation is not, physical separation is not a separation of the bond in a relationship. If you are truly in love with a person with all their warts, with all their strengths, then being physically apart does not and should not preclude you from having feelings for that person. Like, I know for myself, if me and a girlfriend are in an argument, and I have been through my fair share of arguments, I've always tried to be like, okay, after the time to separate, after the time to, compartmentalize these things, let's tackle the problem, because now we can tackle it from a calmer perspective. From a man's point of view, this sense of individual self-worth and self-value is really critical to a man's mental well-being and his ability to relate with others. The more that I can decompartmentalize things, the better. But if you're trying to make me deal with everything all at once, and again, this is just me, I'm not everyone, but if I had to deal with everything at once, it feels rushed, it feels confused, and it feels taxing and demanding. And then that's when you get the worst part of me, where I'm just like, okay, I want to fuck it all and just throw everything away. Or even worse yet, you feel like you want to smash something in, because at least then it's broken and you don't have to deal with it anymore. For better or worse, and it isn't inherently a violent thing, though it may appear that way. It's more of a, I just want this to fuck out of my sight and I don't want to see it ever again. And that can manifest itself in the wrong way. But that's the intent behind it. Men are direct, for good or for ill. We want to solve the problem, and we want to never speak of it again. If you were to look back at your experiences, not even the worst of experiences, even a minor experience, even a small experience, if you look back, you'll realize that the boyfriend, husband, fiance always tries to put it in a banality sense, right? He doesn't say, oh, let's bring this up again at another time. No, for him, the time is right now to bring it up. And then at that point, it will never be brought up again. It's just supposed to be over. That is true man's mental health. That is where men truly thrive mentally. When we have solved it, and it will never be a thing again. If you want to be the girl in his life, you want to be the woman, you want to be the wife, or even hell, if you want to be his mistress, what is the difference between a mistress and a wife? Well, what the mistress is able to do is the mistress is able to understand he just wants all this shit to go away. He quite literally doesn't want to put up with any of the nonsense anymore. And I can't say this with absolute certainty, but I can say it with a good degree of confidence that for most men looking for a mistress, men look for a mistress to put problems away. Like, this is complicated right now. I don't want to deal with it. Let me go and get my noodle sucked. Quite literally, that is the intent and purpose behind it. And I know for some ladies who might find themselves in the role of a mistress, where you ask yourself, can I go from being a mistress to a wife? And the answer to that, surprisingly, is yes. It's possible. Well, anything is possible, right? But it is possible to go from a mistress to a wife. And the key to going from a mistress to a wife is, ironically enough, what makes you a mistress to begin with. Your ability to help him move all of the problems away is the number one quality of a woman. Now, preferably and ideally, you're all wives and none of you are mistresses so that you don't have to make that transformation to begin with. But we don't live in a perfect world, right? So if there are those of you who are mistresses wanting to become a man's wife, the number one thing that you need to do is to keep on being a problem solver in his life. Keep on being the one that he can relate to and talk to. And you notice when he comes to your crib, his shoulders are relaxed. And you notice when he's not in your crib, his shoulders are tense. He's tense. His adrenaline is pumping. But when he's around you, he doesn't care. A man not caring can definitely sometimes be a bad thing, but context matters. If he doesn't care in relation to, oh, this is my comfort place, you have done it as a woman. You have the secret sauce that will make him marry you. Like me personally, that is honestly the number one thing that I am looking for in a future wife. Your ability to make me be like, oh, thank God I don't have to do this anymore. Major, major win. And it's kind of funny, of all of the ASMR videos and stuff like that, right? Very rarely do I see the videos where it's like, oh, title, coming home after a hard day's work, or, vacation spa at a hotel or whatever. Just something that completely takes the guy to a place of comfort. It really, really would mean a lot for men if he could just for once turn off the alpha in his brain, turn off the hyper competitiveness that he needs to survive. If he could just do that and just have that moment of relaxation, that for a man means everything. And the more that you're able to provide that as a woman, the more you'll be able to maintain your healthy relationships as a girlfriend and wife, and the more you, as a mistress, have a chance of snagging that guy up. Because you've given him something that the nagging wife kind of wasn't able to. And now, to be fair and to be a devil's advocate, I understand from a nagging wife's perspective. You see that the household isn't where it should be. You see where, certain circumstances aren't necessarily what you would have wanted or preferred. But here's a little secret about that. The man is well aware of that. Unless he is a docile moron, he is more than well aware that things aren't where he wants them, never mind where you want them. Because I promise all ladies this, our hyper competitiveness will always exist. No matter how poor, no matter how down low, no matter how down bad. Even a guy who, for example, is a druggie and is addicted and has a bunch of priors or whatever it is, even he looks up to the top of the food chain and he necessarily feels a certain tinge of regret over the choices that he knows he made that put himself in that position. And so for most men at that point, it becomes a struggle on whether or not you're able to climb from there and whether you're not. And some men are able to do so and some men are not able to do so. And here's the other hard thing about it. You can't create that outcome. That for men is a self-discovery period. As much as I know you want to help, the best way you can help a man in that way is to let the man go through the self-discovery, to go through what he needs to go through to turn his life around. If you're in that kind of trouble scenario, it's important for the man to come to his own realization before others can help him come to that realization. Because if he doesn't make that period of self-discovery, he's never going to make it. Like, I hate to be the one to say the bad news, but would he want a guy like that anyway? A guy who didn't understand himself and didn't know what to think of himself? I know I wouldn't if it were the other way around. So if you're in that situation, just know that component, that space, is crucial for men to bounce back, and it's also crucial for the men who thrive. It goes both ways. Whether you're on the top, he needs it, and whether you're on the bottom, he needs it. And if you're in the middle, it's a great place for him to be, because for the middleman, it's where he could stabilize. That quiet place allows him to filter out everything and keep his eyes solely focused on the prize. So that's the one thing about men's mental health. The other thing about men's mental health, right, is, and I feel you, where there are a lot of men, and even the word a lot is hyperbole, because just like with females, there's a vocal minority. There's a vocal minority who generally lash out at random, posts or whatever it is. And the number one question to that, for example, is why. And it does tie back to what I said earlier about mental spaces and needing that kind of time. Although it does have some different components to it as well. For a man, nothing is more important than his personal prestige. It's the only thing that we have. We don't have visual appeal. Like, I think that's stating the obvious. I think both men and women recognize that men's visual appeal pales in comparison to the fairest sex. It just needs no elaboration. But if men don't have visual appeal, if they don't have sex market appeal, what do they have? If nothing else, what a guy has is his own self-dignity. And so when people say they care for the mental health, and when they say we're here for you, etc., it can, and although not intentionally, it can come off as patronizing at worst, but it can also come off as, you don't really care, you're just using this for bounty points. Now, for 95% of you, that's almost definitely not true. For 5%, it is true. And the 5% looks louder than the 95%. And so those minority men, most of whom are indeed hurting, they're going to use this to lash out, not necessarily at you, but more at either A, their own lot in life, or B, at circumstances that they feel is the blame for whatever their problem is. And what makes this a double-edged sword is that women internalize everything. And so my message to ladies is, when you see these posts, just ignore it. As hard as that is, and I know that it is from your perspective, from your POV, it's really important to ignore it because it's not directed at you. The reply may be there on X, Twitter, whatever, on various social media outlets or chat room, or even a DM, whatever it is. It's not directed at you. It is directed at the culture of a system that they want to attack for that. Either that or the need to keep that space purely masculine. You've heard about it with regard to the video games, how Twitch used to be this centered around video games, and now you have the e-bots and all the girls, and that's a whole different video in of itself, right? And I respect women's spaces, and I would love nothing more than for women to have their own spaces, right? But for men, going from this was our space to now having to share it, that might make them feel a certain way because of the possessiveness of it. And so for that reason, you're going to have some of these negative responses. But my whole message on that is these responses, they both come from a place of hurt, and they're more targeting the car culture than they are you. So don't worry, your heart is definitely in the right place. Just know that it's a very emotional time for a lot of men, because for many, a great deal of men, you could be in college, you get a 4-year degree, whatever it is, and you could still find yourself either not with the woman that you dreamed that you would have, or you could find yourself in a situation where you may not even be looked at as date material at all. And internally, in an internalization process for men, a lot of us think, oh, we're failures. We don't have the home, we don't have the car, we don't have the woman, on a very base level. We're not getting laid. From that vantage point, if you look at it from that aspect, you could see how men would feel, okay, we're a failure, everything is done, go seppuku, Like, that is the deep end of that. And in that deep end space, there's going to be that lashing out. So just ignore it, as hard as it is, because I know, or not even that I know, we've seen how ladies like to interact with other ladies and how that works. But in this particular space, the best thing you can do is not to give it that attention. Don't give it that focus. It's not you. It's not your fault. It just is the lashing out. And that is what that is on the lashing out part. The final thing that I did want to touch on in this kind of collage video is VTuber self-expression. Anyone who's seen my Twitter/X posts, and even the videos I made, rightly or wrongly, etc. No one is perfect. No one ever gets a crystal ball. And I am more than ready to wear egg on my face if I'm ever incorrect. It is what it is. Not the first time, won't be the last. But one of the things that I've always tried to do is I want to be an advocate for people's self-expression because I know what it feels like to be ostracized, to be doubted, to be mocked, to be ridiculed, and above all, to not have your own expression, if not respected, then at least dignified. And lately, this whole thing came up on Twitter/X about ladies in their models wearing, whether it be bikini or clad revealing kind of outfits, and I have several thoughts on that. First of all, I'm gonna let ladies in on a little bit of a secret. A lot of it is jealousy. You know that meme where a guy, or not even a guy, there's some of them where it's even a woman wearing the max, where the person has this text bubble of, oh, this is awful, blah, blah, blah. And while saying all this, beneath the max is someone crying. That's what this is. Because truth be told, as I said just a bit before, women are more visually pleasing, but women also have more in the clothing design. I'm just going to be real. Would I wear, a bikini? Would I wear, Lucy Pierre, her outfit? Would I wear that? Would I not mock by other men? The answer would be yes. I mean, look at it. The blackness just pops off. It hugs the curves the right way. Yes, I would wear something like that. And there are other design clothes where the leather is thin, or it's a soft touch, or it's a bunch of jewelry, whatever it is. Women clothes pop off. They absolutely pop off. Where what is a true 10 of 10 woman, here's what a man thinks when he truly sees a 10-10 woman. You're wearing this blitzed out, awesome dress, and the thought that goes through a man's mind is, I am so aroused by what you wear, and I am also aroused by what you're not wearing at the same time, that I honestly cannot choose. That is the true power of a 10 and 10 woman when it comes to the power of women dresses, right? Now, think on the other way around. That doesn't happen for a man's dress. Like, I chose this Elvis Presley kind of outfit for my avatar in large part because this is alpha level male dressing. This is the peak of male physical beauty expression. It just can't go farther than this. The only way it could theoretically go farther than this would be if I had made the model some muscular man with a lot of muscles. But not only immersion spoiler does that not portray my actual self, but also B, and we're hearing it from some ladies, and not every lady is attracted to the muscular Superman model. And that's one of the big differences between men and women, is that for women, female sexuality is universal. It almost literally doesn't matter what shape, what size, and for good reason, As long as they're healthy about it, keep on being you, right? But for women, it is so much easier to visually create appealing dresses than it is for men. Like, even though this is the kind of alpha look at it. It's a long sleeve jacket with long sleeve pants. In the summer or even in the spring, something like this is hot as fuck. You think I want to wear this? Oh, hell no. I would rather wear a shirt and some shorts. But, unless you have it made or unless you already have a woman in the bag, you being a casual male is generally 5 or 10, whatever. You look nice, you look presentable. It is what it is. but you're not going to have eyes drawn to you. By comparison, a female who dresses 5 out of 10 absolutely will have eyes drawn to her. And this is something where I know it's hard to kind of put your head around it if you always have the eyes on you. But from a male point of view, we just never do. So there is a significant part of clothes envy. At least I felt clothes envy. And not just clothes envy. Like, let's not get it twisted. I've gone through male sprays and I've experienced various different male deodorants, but nothing compares to what women have on the table for their perfumes and for other things like that. Like, the quality in the fashion industry for women is just on a different stratosphere. And there's a part of that is envious for that. There's also sort of the envy as well for some guys, not me, but for some, where a lot of guys look at it and they see something that they can't have. And I think that this is true for both genders. When you see something that you can't have, the natural reaction is to diminish it. Oh, it's not that great. Oh, it's not that special. Oh, I've seen better. Whatever it is. It is a mechanism that is telling a naked baseball lie so that we could feel better about ourselves. And then another part of it definitely is controlling to the extent of, well, if I am able to restrict this kind of thing, then everyone else is the same and I don't have to feel as bad about myself. So there's varying components to it. Some of it logical, others of it illogical, but deep-seated, rooted in thousands of years of human psychology. And a lot of it, ultimately, at the end of the day, just petty. It's petty for us to ridicule a woman or a man for what he or she decides to wear. I think it's petty and I think it's small. And if there are other guys, for example, who are gooning to some model or gooning to an ephod, well, that's just by design. That's what they wanted. And if we truly believe in a free market and if we truly believe in free expression, we should be aiming for that and we should be all for that, after all. For every man that doesn't go for the ephod, or for every man who isn't submitting over the dress, those men then are available for different types of women or different types of experiences and vice versa. So for me, I would just say, let them keep on keeping on. It's not harming you, so why feel a certain way about it? And if you feel a certain way about it because you feel as though you can't get that lady, then, just level up. That's what I personally want to do. I want to level up so that I can reach that level one day. And so those options then become feasible for me then, whereas they may not be feasible for me now. So, just level up. And some people might say, well, isn't that level up mentality what gets guys into it? No, it's what gets them out of it, in all honesty. Because, it's that flight or fight kind of thing. It's do or die. No one is going to hold your hand. No one is going to make your life feel better. And no one is suddenly going to feel any sympathy or empathy for you. Those things may be great for the feminine psyche, but for the man, believing that there's some, chariot at the end of the day, believing that there's some rainbow unicorn, believing that there's some miracle waiting for you, that is the true death of a man. That, at that point, is where it's over. Because once you're in that trap of believing that someone is going to save you, you will never, ironically, be saved. You will be forever trapped, waiting for that one moment of salvation, waiting for that one moment of something going your way when you're the one that has to make your own way. And ironically, in that period of making your own way, that's when you can truly become the man that you're meant to become. And that's when you can truly be a man worthy of the self-respect that men need in order to feel mentally confident. So those were all my thoughts on these varying issues. And, I hope everyone has a great day, men and women both. Peace.